thank you very much, everyone, for attending this very important event. And I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here for a moment because we literally just arrived from Halifax. The previous speaker so eloquently said that this tragedy has to end. And it is a monumental tragedy of epic dimensions. And it is I'm very sad that I have to be here today, actually, that the PEI government, even after hearing all of the pleas and the tragic stories that have been shared, and they still are indifferent, apparently. And this is calculated cruelty. This is a policy that began several decades ago. It's very much a manifestation, if you will, of violence against women. Someone thought that illegitimate children shouldn't be with their own mothers. And this was done over a period of decades, and the myth became more resilient that these women didn't want their babies, and lies were fabricated and perfected, and the public is unaware of the magnitude of the tragedy that occurred. I don't want to condemn anyone, but I suffered as a child. When I was a young woman at the age of 21, I tried to locate my birth mother, who lived with her family just outside of Charlottetown up until the time of my birth. I was taken from the Charlottetown hospital at the age of 1 week by the director of a children's welfare society, a Protestant society. And after much investigation and effort on my own part, I learned the truth of what had happened. And my mother did not sign the surrender form. Before I was taken from the hospital, I was put in a foster home outside of Charlottetown, where I stayed until I was 14 months old. After I had been in that foster home as a newborn infant for a year, the Child Welfare Agency then realized that they had not executed the surrender form properly, and they had to track down my birth mother in Toronto a year later. So I had been in the custody of this Child Welfare Agency for a year before they even realized this. So they tracked down my mother in Toronto by that time, and she was living with a sister in Toronto. And finally, then after a year, she did sign the papers. In that intervening year, the Child Welfare Agency had applied for family allowances when I was a week old. And when I started looking for my mother and my family when I was 20 years old, I learned that she was living in Toronto. I made contact with several of her siblings who lived not far away from here. And they told me that she came home to the island every summer with her sister from Toronto. By that time, my mother was married and had children in Toronto. I was very much looking forward to meeting my mother. And less than a year later, after I made contact with her siblings here on the island, I got a phone call one evening in March of 1980 telling me that she had died suddenly. And I made a very sad journey to Toronto. And the first and only time that I saw my mother was when her brothers took me to see her in her casket in Toronto. And I find it just almost mind-boggling that the PEI government is still unwilling, after hearing my story and the stories of many others. I don't want to make myself the center of attention, but I'm willing. I have the capability to come forward and share my story with you, not to seek sympathy or not to condemn anyone, but to say to the PEI government that this calculated cruelty that has been inflicted both on mothers and their children. So now it's intergenerational, what the PEI government has been doing for decades, literally for decades. And this is calculated cruelty. There's no place anywhere in Canada for this type of discrimination to be continued and to be make attempts at justification for this type of calculated cruelty. The mothers whose children were so cruelly taken from them are dying. They're literally dying. And there are adoptees, many of whom I have spoken to, who are living in far away from the island in the United States, across Canada. They're trying to find their own family and their mothers. And I also want to share with you my own experience after my mother so tragically died. A few short years later, my son was born, and I started having trouble walking. And to make a very long story short, the doctors that I saw kept telling me, you have a genetically inherited illness. And I said, how could this be? Because I had this small little booklet that the PEI government and the Protestant Family Service Bureau had given me. And it only had just the most flimsy of information. It said that someone in my family had diabetes. There was no mention whatsoever about a muscular issue. And so I started making inquiries. I asked my mother's siblings here in just outside of Cornwall, where they live. I asked them if they knew of anyone, even in the extended family or going back generations, who might have had a genetically inherited muscle issue, and they had no idea. And the doctors just kept insisting, telling me this is a genetically inherited illness. So the point that I want to make, it took me years and years of going to specialists, both in Nova Scotia, in Ottawa, and in Bethesda, Maryland, before I was diagnosed with an ultra-rare form of muscular dystrophy. And I was told by some of the best doctors in Canada that both my birth father and my birth mother were carriers of this gene. So I am here to tell you today and to share with you and the PEI government to stop making excuses. Adult adoptees have the right to know if they are passing on to their own children unknowingly these type of devastating illnesses that I inherited from my birth family, from my natural family here on PEI. And the PEI government might try to tell you that, oh, well, you know, if an adult adoptee finds that they're having symptoms or what have you, we will be more forthcoming with allowing, you know, telling you who your family are. No, that is insufficient. That is insufficient, because the adult adoptee needs to be able to take control of their own lives and those of their children. because I did not know that I had a ticking time bomb. And I worried for years and years after my son was born, and my illness kept getting worse and worse, worse than anyone ever expected. I was worried sick for years and years of whether I had passed this along to my own son. And thankfully, mercifully, he is not going to develop this, but he is empowered by the information that we had to struggle and to get the accurate diagnosis of my type of muscular dystrophy. And now if he ever decides to have children, he has the information. He's armed with the information that was never provided to me because of this bigotry that surrounds layer upon layer of bigotry and conjured up all kinds of stigma and notions about unmarried women. And I want to let you know that when they talk about unmarried women with their bigotry and with their practices of taking the babies of unmarried women, in that category, it's not only single unmarried women who undoubtedly have borne the brunt of these practices, but included in that category are also widowed women, any woman who's not attached to a man, okay? Whether the husband left or they're separated or they were widowed. So I want to share that with you as well. So they did more or less through shame and stigma force unmarried women into these maternity homes and kept them in some cases against their will and violated their dignity and their rights that other women have suffered as well. Other women who, for whatever reasons, became unattached from a man. So I want to say to the PEI government, you have a lot to be accountable for, to explain the unspeakable suffering that has been inflicted both on mothers who, I can't imagine the pain, the cruelty of having a child, giving birth to a child, and having that child taken away from you and wondering, being just torn apart for years and decades later, what has happened to my own child? And for her not to, it's just unfathomable, and this has to stop. The PEI government has to stop making excuse after excuse, stalling, every excuse imaginable. I have heard one theme that they like to bring up is PEI is a rural province, and we have to take special consideration of that fact. Well, that does not give the PEI government the right to discriminate. We have a right to know who our families are. Mothers have the right to know whether their children are alive and well. And the burden of proof is on the PEI government to prove that anyone, anywhere, was ever harmed, directly or indirectly, when adoption records were opened, when a shift was made from closed records to open records. The burden is on the PEI government to prove these fear-mongering stories and excuses that they come up with. And trust me, we have heard, I have been involved in this since 1980, since I started searching for my own mother, who so tragically died before I had a chance to see her. And I have been listening to the